Hey, Zach. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you and appreciate you coming back on the show. I know you've been on before when we were doing it, in person and the kind of the inception of the show, but now things have kind of progressed a
Yes,
little
sir.
differently. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Crazy year we've had. Extenuating circumstances have made us do things differently than we did in the past, but we're just kind of rolling with the punches, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest with you, it's sometimes even a thriving, because as far as the show's concerned, I've been able to do like so much more online, than I ever did in person, So it's and be able to speak to people from, from different countries and, time zones and everything like that, stuff that would have never happened, if I was just waiting to do it in person. So,
Well, it's just more convenient, like before when we did the show in person, I live not even 5 minutes away from you. Now I live about 30 or 35 minutes away from you. I'm in a
yeah.
different county.
Yeah.
Um, but 10 minutes ago, you were like, hey, you want to hop on in 10? Sure.
Yeah.
That would have been a year ago if we didn't have, things like Zoom in our fingertips, it would have been impossible. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're still looking lean, looking good. What are you drinking there?
Oh, dang. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a popular one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I was at Bargain Hunt like 2 weeks ago, and they had these things on clearance for like $1 each. They're normally like 2.50 or $3 for one. So I stocked up.
Yeah, but energy drinks can be kind of expensive if like they're usually like pretty pricey if you think about how much you're getting as opposed to how much you're paying. They generally tend to be kind of pricey.
Yeah, I that's why I always try to buy in bulk with mine. Like very seldom will I like go into like a gas station and spend $3 and some change on a single drink. Like I'll go to like a Kroger or a Walmart and I'll find the deals where it's like 10 for 10
Hmm.
or buy two get one free or whatever. Like I try to like I try to make the average cost of an energy drink no more than like $1 per, which is still really pricey compared to like a 12 pack of like Coke or Diet
Right,
Coke.
right.
Not that you should be drinking that anyway, but.
Better diet than otherwise.
it,
So
it is expensive, but everybody has something that they like. It's all about moderation. If it's something that you do in moderation, you enjoy, and you don't abuse it, just like most things in life, more power to you.
yeah, I've well, both my wife and I, but I'll just talk about myself. I've been working on trying to lose a few pounds. I've actually overall lost about 15 to 20 pounds, and I'm trying to keep going, try to get down to like I'm about 250 now. So I'm trying to get down to like a 225 before we go on our a little vacation we have planned in July. So I won't be embarrassed
Nice.
to take off my shirt.
Still a tank. You've
uh,
always been a monster, man. I remember you kind of like introduced me to the gym when I was a teenager. Like I had been acquainted with it, but you were the first person to ever like I would go in and I'd be embarrassed to even walk through the front desk when I was
mhm.
just 14, 15 years old. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was very like I think most people talk about like gym intimidation. They were I was gym intimidated when I was just 14 and 15. There were all these big jacked bodybuilders that
Mhm.
had years of experience, and I just felt like I was in everybody's way. But you came along and you kind of showed me the ropes, and I'll forever be grateful to you for helping me get started on what has been that was 15 years ago. I've been training for 14, 15 years at this point. So thanks for getting me started.
Of course. Yeah, no, that's it's something that I enjoyed and I always tried to get like people that I associated with into it as well. Of course, not everybody took to it like you did, but you are you are what I would call a true evidence of what consistency and hard work on a regular basis like can do for you. It's one of those things where like you said, you've been training now for 14 years, and in a scope of life that's not very long, but in the scope of people's attention spans and how long people train, that is, because generally speaking, people will start with working out and they'll quit, and or they'll just get over, they'll have other things come up. And you are a perfect example of what you can accomplish if you just stick with it, and consistency is huge.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, kind of like with anything in life, I think when you're first getting started with anything, those first few months that you're building the habit, that's where everybody is the most prone to throw in the towel, whether it's like developing a fitness habit or saving money or working towards any kind of lofty, ambitious goal. Those first few months, like I think people misconstrue that in those first few months that it's always going to be this tough, like suck at something. With not just fitness, but with anything, most things in life, people get really jaded by the first few months of any like worthwhile endeavor that they're pursuing, like whether it's like building a fitness habit or building wealth, learning how to save more money over time, starting a business, starting a new project, a podcast, a blog, anything like that that takes time to build up. I think that people mistakenly think, myself included, I've made this mistake for sure. People mistakenly think that those first few months, that initial hurdle of just like really sucking at whatever it is you're trying to do, they get discouraged by that. And they think that it's always going to be that hard. It's always going to be this like really just like tedious uphill battle, struggling to find traction. But it's really not. And if you just stick with it for months or even years, you will see that you gain traction. And it doesn't take a lot. It only takes a little bit of traction, I think, to stick with it, to start developing that habit and to be more consistent with it. You've just got to let yourself suck for a few months. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we were talking about traction, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and one of the things that will fall into that traction, like for me personally, but also for others that I've noticed, is that seeing results, right? So it's like as soon as you, and specifically in fitness oriented things, as soon as you start seeing a little bit of results, all of a sudden you feel like, okay, I got this. But it's like, but if it takes, but during that time between you start and when you first notice your results, it can be very, it can be very difficult to not stop, because you're like, what am I doing this for? I don't see anything, it's like, this is difficult. The other aspect that I've also kind of noticed is that you're not doing well because your body isn't developed to do well. That's what you're doing right now. You're molding your body into a machine, well-oiled machine. Once that happens, then things get easier, So yeah, initially things are going to be tough because they're tough because you're not equipped for handling it. But as you get better and as you whatever it is you're doing, whether it's like a specific sport or is just weightlifting for the sake of weightlifting, the better you get at it, the more your body changes, and then the easier it's going to get,
So yeah, traction, that's really the key word. And that goes, as I said, for anything, fitness related, building a business, a blog, finance, anything. You've got to know how to do it wrong in order to know what it feels like to do it right, I guess, right? So you can, if you're a newcomer to the gym, you can read about how to do a perfect push-up all day long. You can read about how to do a perfect squat all day long. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to deal with the growing pains of going in the gym and not doing it perfectly the first time. You're going to have to accept that in the beginning, there is a learning curve for anything. So, you're going to have to practice to get better at these things over time.
Mhm.
And the combination of the education with the application, I believe, is the key to success to make you, you know, thrive at anything that you choose to pursue over time. I think maybe a lot of people put too much of an emphasis on one or the other. They'll have paralysis by analysis because they'll just be reading and reading and reading about the best possible way to do something
Mhm.
without ever actually taking action. And on the other end of the spectrum, you might have somebody who works really hard and is practicing all the time, but they're not practicing with proper technique. They're not developing the right type of skill because they haven't learned the right way to do it. So while they're working hard, the application is not getting any better. They're working harder, not smarter. So I
Right.
think there's a happy medium, you know?
Yeah, yeah, there's a balance to it, right? Like you said, you can't overanalyze things, but at the same time, you can't go about doing it a dumb way either. So it's like you know, it doesn't work that way. One extreme or the other extreme are at the end will bring bad results. I mean, for example, like I'm starting to I want to get into like doing cleans and jerks and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I've never done that before. And so like for me, I was like, before I start putting any kind of weight on it, before I start putting any kind of 45s or this or that, like I want to do it with the bar. I want to do it right. I want to get my technique right because I know that, once I start putting on weight, the chances of getting hurt are, start skyrocketing if I don't do it right. So it's,
Sure.
um, it's one of those things.
Yeah, I agree completely. And recently I came out with a book. It's called Strength for Beginners, and what I aimed to achieve with that book was to kind of deliver the best of both worlds. So I'm giving you all the information that you need, all the way from a basic body weight push up, progressing all the way to a barbell bench press. I'm walking you through a logical progression. I'm giving you an education on how to progress yourself from the beginning to the end goal, if you will.
Mhm.
But it's also on you to do the work. Read the
Right.
material, take the program, see what it is you need to do, and then get in the trenches and apply that work. And the results will come with time if you educate
Yeah.
yourself and you apply that education to the real world.
Yeah. I found your book interesting because I can't count how many times someone has come up to me and asked me to like to show them how to do something or ask me if the form that they're using is correct, and it would be something that I would think would be common sense, right? And that's just because I've been working out for a long time. But I have to take a step back and understand that majority of people are at that level where your book is going to help them. They're at the level where they need to be walked through. They need to know, oh, how do you do an appropriate push-up? There's a lot of people that don't know how to do an appropriate push-up. It seems simple, but if you learn it the wrong way in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to cause a problem all the way throughout your life, and you might continue training, continue lifting, and
Mm-hmm.
it is going to screw you up, through the entirety of your training. And I felt like your book is um, really tackles that problem. So
Yes, absolutely. That in you just summed up the whole problem in that one sentence right there. In the beginning, you know, teenager, young kid doing push-ups, maybe your arms are flared out, you're not getting the right mobility through the shoulder blades, you're letting your butt sag down, there's not your core isn't braced, whatever. Your form's not great. That's fine. You can get away with it for a while. Then you progress to like a dumbbell bench press and you bring all those same habits that you brought from the push up, you take those, the dumbbell bench press, you can probably still get away with it for a while. Then you put on the 45-pound plates onto the barbell, you move to a barbell bench press. And again, you can get away with it for a while and you're just building more and more and more strength on top of instability. you're building a house on a foundation of sand. And that's why, in my opinion, so many people say the barbell bench press is terrible for my shoulders. I have a shoulder injury from a barbell bench press. They probably never learned the proper way to bench in the first place because they don't know how to do a proper dumbbell press. They don't know how to do a proper push-up. Why would they understand the finer points of doing a proper barbell bench press, which is a very, it's very easy to put your shoulders in a very vulnerable position if you're not, you know, retracting the shoulder blades down and back, creating a nice stable shelf for you to press off of. Yeah, a straight bar with heavy weight going down on your shoulders like that, that's a terrible position to be in if you don't know how to control it the right way.
Right. And see, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I find that a statement to be a truism, a real truism, as far as putting more weight or, you know, or strength on instability. It's because that's essentially what it is. And strength a lot of times can give you a false sense of security. And I mean that, or I guess false sense of progression, because you're thinking, oh, well, I'm pushing this weight, so I must be doing it right, because if I can push this weight, then obviously I'm doing it right. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to push the weight, right? And you know, some people are just strong naturally, despite or in spite, I guess, of their bad form, they can push the weight. But as they progress, as you said, as they add more weight and more, because of course you will, right? You're not gonna continue doing the same like weight that you did 5 years ago. You're gonna progress. You're gonna get stronger, and you know the body is made in such a way where it's like it will get stronger, even that you're using bad form. But eventually, like you said, that instability is gonna result, and usually it results in injuries. Usually that's where and then at that point it's like your injury could be minor, but or it could be very severe, and to the point where you can't even train anymore the way you want to. So it's good to catch it early, you know.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. And you know, a lot of like high school and college weight rooms, unfortunately, not all of them, of course, but a good bit of them, they've got, in my opinion, you know, underqualified coaches teaching them the wrong way to do things. I mean, how many guys do you see? How many guys in your 20 years in the gym have you seen with their butt like stuck way up in the air on a bench press, or they're looking up like this to the sky on a barbell squat? And you ask them, why are you doing that? And they'll say, oh, well, that's what my coach told me to do
Right.
in school. So
Yeah,
that can be.
absolutely. I've seen it all the time. I still see it if I go to the gym. Excuse me. And then I did it myself. So
Yeah, me
because I
too.
was told, I was told that that's the right way. You look up, you put, and no one ever
Argue that.
questions. Yeah, no one ever questions like why. And of course you wouldn't, especially as a young kid. You wouldn't. There's a lot of bravado and a lot of screaming and yelling and pushing you verbally to push the weight, and even though that's not the appropriate way. And I think that's a huge problem in the athletic scene, especially with young kids, because the better schools, the schools that have the better programs, they have those coaches. They have the good coaches, the ones that will teach you the right way of doing it. So I think your book is really helpful because it's a lot cheaper than a coach, and you don't need to be in a great program to benefit from it. So a guy like who would go to a high school that doesn't really have those those good coaches can pick up your book and be able to do it themselves. They just have to have the will, the desire to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the desire's got to be there. The information is readily available, but ultimately, you know, the book is not going to squat and bench press and deadlift for you. So
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
always good to educate yourself, understand the proper way to do it. But then the rubber's got to meet the road somewhere, and it's on you to listen to your body, put the education that you'll gain to work, and progress in a way that you feel is safe and consistent with your current level of strength and capability.
Right, right. And also, I mean, you are you haven't, it's not that coming from someone that doesn't know what they're doing. Like, you've been involved in this for a long time. Not only were you training for aesthetics and for just development personally, but also you were involved in wrestling, which, you know, a lot of that in our, if somebody wants to check out our prior podcast, but there's a lot, we talked a lot about WWE style wrestling, if people don't understand, where there's a lot of, you know, a lot of technique, a lot of jumping, a lot of strength involved, a lot of things that you would need to develop your body for. Like, it's not something that's very easy to, you know, to get to. So go ahead. I thought you were about to say something there.
No, I was just gonna kind of to piggyback off of
Mm-hmm.
that comment. It's not easy. Wrestling is not easy. The body is not meant to take those kind of bumps and endure that kind of punishment. Especially like if you're in the big leagues, like the WWE, you're performing 200 plus nights a year. Um, any sport like pro wrestling, you know, people debate if it's a sport or not, but sports entertainment, we'll call it.
Right.
Pro wrestling, high level sports like college football, NFL, anything like that, any kind of a high contact, a full contact, high impact sport, um, you've got to take whatever sport it is you're doing into consideration when you're deciding how you're going to shape your overall workout program.
Mm.
Like if your job is to be a power lifter, for instance, then yeah, your training is going to revolve around the big three: the squat, the bench, the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. Barbell squat, barbell bench, barbell deadlift. Those are the three lifts that you're supposed to be good at. That's the whole name of the game in competitive powerlifting, is to lift as much weight in those three lifts as you can.
Mm.
But if you're a pro athlete, if you're a professional wrestler, if you're a pro football player, if you're a college football player, whatever, um, you should really take into consideration the beating that your body is going through when you're on the field or in the ring or whatever. And your training should kind of cater to
Mm.
that abuse that you're taking. You can only punish yourself so much. So, you know, it's not a good idea. I don't think. I could tell you for sure from personal experience, wrestling 3 or 4 nights a week, getting the crap kicked out of you, taking crazy bumps, your entire body from head to toe being sore the next day. It's not a good idea to try to go into the gym. You know, if you wrestled 30 minutes on Saturday night and you're just completely thrashed, it's not a good idea to go in Sunday morning and try to deadlift 500 pounds, you know. So your
Right. Right.
training should be catered to what everything else that you're doing in your life.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting that you mentioned that. I was watching, I don't know if you had the opportunity, but on Netflix, there's a really good documentary type of show about the Bulls in the last season, called The Last Dance, and they were talking about how Jordan went that time that he stopped playing basketball and went to play baseball, and how his training for baseball was affecting his ability to play basketball. So like, because it's just a different style of training, different sport, and like there's different needs that each sport requires. So yeah, like that I could definitely see that. But my point was, in the beginning of this little conversation that we were having, was that this book is coming from someone that has that athletic experience, right? Like, it's someone that's been there, that's done that, that's went through the, you know, the physical ordeals. So it's there to assist those who want to follow, you know, follow that path, you know, whether it's, you know, to compete in athletics, or whether it's just to get yourself, you know, in a place where you can develop, you know, personally. So um my other question to you was going to be, how did you, so you got a, I remember talking to you before, you got a certification, right? Like, what was it, what were you certified in?
So I've got the CPPS certification, Certified Physical Preparation Specialist. Is through Joe DeFranco and Jim Smith. Joe DeFranco, well known for being kind of a big time trainer to a lot of NFL guys, Brian Cushing and company. Um, to me, the way I discovered him was through Triple H. Triple H was my favorite wrestler growing up. You know, the look, the charisma, the ring work, everything about Triple H.
Mm-hmm.
He was the man to me. That's who I wanted to be when I grew up. And he heavily influenced my ring work too. So he turned 40. He's like 51 now. And 10 years ago, of course, he turned 40. Or 11 years ago, he turned 40, and injuries and miles on the road and just all the years of abuse to the body were catching up to him. And he had to change the way he was training. Up to that point, he had been doing like your traditional bodybuilding split that we all kind of came up on. And he realized that, you know, it was taking him like 10 minutes to get out of bed every day. He was just beat up. And he needed to start training more like an athlete. So he sought out the best athletic trainers in the area, and he found Joe DeFranco. Long story short, Joe got with Triple H. They've been working together for the last decade, and that was how I discovered Joe DeFranco. It's because he's Triple H's personal trainer. Mm-hmm. I discovered Joe's certification through that, and from that point, I got certified. And that, along with my NESTA nutrition certification, those are the two kind of stalwarts that I've got.
Right. And at what point did you decide that you wanted to write this book?
I've been wanting to write this book for a long time. It was just the matter of sitting down and putting everything that I've got in here onto, you know, paper or onto
no paper anymore. Nobody uses paper.
You know, onto Microsoft Word.
Yeah,
you know, it's always kind of been in my mind. Like when I knew there was a problem when I was 21 years old, and I was like sitting down to get on the bench, and I was wrapping my joints. I remember I was wrapping my joints with this like compression stuff, and I'm like, why am I wrapping my joints at 21 years old? Like I'm barely old enough to buy alcohol, and I've got joint problems. Like I'm not doing something right. There is clearly a problem here. So, you know, through years, almost 2 decades now of trial and error, and largely thanks to educating myself through the CPPS certification, I've been able to kind of put all the pieces of the puzzle together and understand, you know, if I could go back 10 years and tell 21-year-old me, hey, dummy, you're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. I kind of wrote it from that point of view. As somebody now that is much more seasoned, I thought about like what I would want to know as a new guy starting off in the gym. What are the key mistakes that I would want to avoid? And I wrote this book from that perspective.
Got it. And how is the book designed? Is it like chapter based? Is it, you know, body part based, exercise based? How's the flow of the book?
So it's a program, right? It's a 4-phase program. Each phase is 4 weeks long. And here's where it's unique to all the other programs that you typically see online. Most programs, they'll say, hey, this is a 12-week program, or it's a 16-week program. Weeks 1 through 4, you're going to do ABC. And then for the next 4 weeks, you'll do DEF. Then for the next 4 weeks, you'll do XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Not the case with my program. With my program, you start off for 4 weeks and you're just hammering the basics. Basic squat, basic push-up, a lot of upper back strengthening exercises, so on and so forth. At the end of the first phase, you have what I call a test day. You have a strength test. You have to be able to do so many push-ups with good form. You have to be able to do so many squats with good form. There are other strength indicator tests within those days. You've got to be able to pass the test in order to move on to the next phase. And if you don't pass the test, like I think it's 3 exercises for each test. And if you fail any of those exercises, you repeat the phase for another couple of weeks. Then you come back and you test again. And you're not supposed to move on to the next phase until you've passed all 3 tests in each test day.
So it goes along with your process of developing a foundation first before you progress to bigger, badder things, so to
Yeah,
speak.
because everybody learns differently, and I did my best to account for that,
Mm.
human element that makes all of us different, and all of us learn differently, all of us develop strength differently, all of us become acclimated to things at a different pace. So maybe one guy or girl is able to knock out 50 push-ups within their first week.
Mm.
Maybe they're a freak. Great, move on. Maybe it takes the next person longer than 4 weeks to be able to do 10 good push-ups. Maybe it takes them 6 weeks or 7 weeks. you know
Right.
Everybody is different, so I account for that. I think 4 weeks is a good starting point to kind
Mm.
of get an idea, a general understanding of what you're doing. And that was why I made it 4 weeks. From that point, you kind of test yourself, see where you are in the process. And if you're blowing through all those standards, then move on to the next phase. You're not just doing push ups anymore. Now we're going to start working with dumbbells. We're going to start doing floor presses. We're not just doing band pull aparts for the upper back anymore. We can introduce some rows, things of that nature. But if you're at a point where you still can't do 10 really good push-ups, or you can't do 10 really high quality band pull aparts, I'm not going to have you doing barbell bench presses and barbell rows. And that's
Right.
where the tests come in. It's kind of like an accountability partner without having an accountability partner.
Right. Yeah, that the tests are very interesting because you don't see that in other programs. And and because the tendency for people, from my view, is to jump ahead without really completing their
Exactly.
initial levels, right? Or whatever it is. So people always just want to go forward. I want to do this. Well, did you do that before you're going on to this? Oh, well, yeah, kind of, a little bit, sort of. I got the gist of it. It's like, well, maybe you should go back to that before you and master that before you do this. And it's like the testing, I think, is really beneficial because, like you said, it's accountability. There's no opportunity for you to jump ahead. You consciously would have to do that because the tests hold you back until you really truly master that part of the program.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go, let's say, just say like first phase, probably I'm assuming a lot of body exercises, right? When you what would be like the fourth phase? Like what kind of things are we dealing with in the last phase of the book?
So we start, like, when we get to the end, we've effectively progressed from a body weight. Like, I'm just going to use the bench press for example
Sure.
because that's everybody's favorite workout, right?
Sure. It's the question
Um,
everybody gets. How much do you
yeah,
bench?
exactly. So in the case of first of all, let's quantify what every exercise consists of in the gym. We got 7 standard human movement patterns, right? A push, a pull, a squat, a hinge, a lunge, rotate, and carry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was that 7? I think so. Push, pull, squat. Yeah, close enough. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So everything that we do when it comes to a push, a barbell bench press is the same motion as a body weight push-up, right? So phase 1, we're just trying to get really good at the basics. We're trying to master a body weight push-up. The final phase, to your point, we've progressed from a body weight push-up to a dumbbell bench press. Now we're trying our hand at a barbell bench press.
Mm.
We're in the more advanced variation of the push pattern. We've gotten the basics down,
I
the
got it.
regressions down, if you will. And in the final phase, we're trying to, perfect, or, get near perfect form with the more advanced variation, the barbell bench press.
Right, right. Okay. So yeah, that kind of makes sense to me because I'm thinking also from like like years ago I was involved in a lot of combat sports and like let's just take like a takedown or like something like that, for example. It's like you start off, you get the motion right, then like you'll learn how to like drive into the person like with the motion, then you'll learn how to like finally go through the guy, like so there's it's the same movement, but it's like but it progressively gets more, I don't want to say complicated is the word, but it's like it gets more developed as they like you start off at the basic aspect of the movement, you get that right, then the movement you add on to that movement like to make it more effective. So it's very similar to that.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
there's no section of the book that, you know, the program itself and its phases, it explains the what. Like you're going to start with a bodyweight squat. You're going to move on to a goblet squat. Eventually, you'll move on to a single leg squat, so on and so forth. And then there's another section that explains kind of the how. It breaks down, how to set up properly for a
Mhm.
barbell bench press, how to set up properly for a barbell squat, a barbell deadlift, so on and so forth. And it's just kind of bullet points with cues to kind of help you understand where your body needs to be underneath the bar in order to perform the exercise with optimal technique. It's written as succinctly as it can possibly be written with words. Videos and doing it in person, there's nothing like that. But as far as like a book format goes, it's written in as best detail as it possibly can be to give you a good understanding of where you should be starting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so this has photos and you said videos as well.
There's a separate video library
Hmm.
that I'm in the process of working on that will be
Okay,
available. But as of right now, the standard book, it's written all out in bullet points, like,
got it,
shoulder blades back and down,
got it.
knees should be right, things like that.
Yeah, I look forward to getting that looked at as well. That sounds interesting that you're working on the video aspect of it. So, yeah, it's a big part of doing the moves appropriately is to making sure that you're in the right position, right? I was just doing squats not that long ago, and it's like I could feel as soon as I picked up the bar off the rack, it's like I could tell. Now I've had years of a squatting experience, so I could tell I was a little off of where I was on the bar. But it's like if you don't can't tell that, and you're squatting and it's off, and your positioning and your dynamics of your body are off, it's like that could be very problematic. If one, you're not getting the benefit of the squat. That's the basic thing. Not even talking about injuries and things of that nature as well. So
Oh yeah. Things like a barbell squat and a barbell deadlift. I mean, very they're excellent exercises. Everyone calls the barbell squat the king of all lifts,
mhm.
and rightfully so. It is definitely one of the best exercises you can do as far as like a bang for your buck, full body strengthening exercise is concerned.
Right.
But there's a lot of risk involved in doing it,
Yeah.
especially when you load it up with heavy weight, and that kind of goes back to our whole conversation about building a foundation, building building strength on a foundation of instability. You
Mhm.
can get away most likely with doing, squats with 135 pounds with not the best form. But the problems start to come when you're piling plates on and you're trying to do 315 or 405.
Right.
One wrong movement the wrong way, that's a lot of weight loaded on your spine, and could
Yeah.
end badly if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. And trust me, the worst thing that you could do at any age, but imagine if you're a young guy and you lift wrong and your back goes out, back problems will last with you forever. I've talked to countless people that have had like back injuries, and it's like they're never the same after that. Doesn't matter. Like they're just not the same. Even if the injury gets a little better, it's like it's one of those places in your body that's like you need it for everything. And whenever you injure it, it's never an easy process. So you definitely want to make sure you get your form right.
Yeah, it's happened to me. It's happened to
Mhm.
me. Barbell deadlifting, and I was doing technique wise, I was doing everything right. I wasn't rounding. Everything was positioned as it should be. but it just so happened to be in the middle of the winter. Probably rushed the warm up a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't quite, my core temperature wasn't quite where it needed to be. I'm in a cold garage, and you know, I was pulling 315, and you know, first rep was fine. Went down for that second rep, got about a quarter of the way up, and it felt like I just got like stabbed in the back, man.
Mm.
Dropped it. And I'm okay now.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't need surgery or anything, but it's a
Right.
very thing to deal with, and it really makes you rethink your exercise selection, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, ask yourself for any exercise you do, why am I doing this? Why am I doing a straight bar deadlift? Um, because they're cool, because it's for your sport,
Yeah.
because you want to be strong. I mean, great. You can get strong a ton of different ways. It doesn't have to be a straight bar deadlift. It doesn't have to be a straight bar squat.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of keep that in mind if you want to be training for the next 30 or 40 years. Exercise selection plays a big part in joint health and longevity over time.
Yeah. I almost never hear anybody talk about exercise selection. It's like that's a topic that's not really like popular to really talk about. But yeah, if it definitely makes a difference, right, on your longevity.
Yeah. I mean, I heard a great quote from a strength coach named Jay Perugia. He said, the sooner you start training like you're 45, he said, if you
Mhm.
start training like you're 45 when you're 25, you're going to feel a whole lot better when you hit 45.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like the benefit is the same, if not better. Like sometimes, like as when you're younger, you feel like, oh, I'm just gonna be aggressive. I'm gonna pull, I'm gonna push as hard as I can. Everything is just uber aggressive, and it's like, but the benefit that you get from that is not as much as if you were just to do things appropriately and with the right disposition. It's like, and that's sometimes, unfortunately, that comes with mental maturity at a later age. But if you're a person that can get that earlier on in your career, um, that was going to be such a huge benefit for you.
Well, I think when most people are younger, myself included, and I'm sure you went through this at some point too,
Mhm.
everybody feels like they've got to prove something either to themselves or to their buddies or
Right.
whatever. And it causes you to make some kind of silly decisions that, with the benefit of hindsight, you realize you probably shouldn't have been doing. And I think, do you train with percentages when it comes to like, you know, uh, 3 sets of 5 at 80% of your one rep max? Do you train in that fashion ever?
I have in the past. Right now, the way I'm training is so like I don't have as much weight as like I can handle, so it's not a big deal for me not to do that because I'm not pulling like that much weight in general. But yeah, in the past when I had the opportunity to stack up as much as I wanted to, yeah, I would do things like that.
So, one thing that I've found to help myself and to help
Hmm.
people that I've worked with over the years, when it comes to programming based off of percentages, I think some people make the mistake of programming based off of their best case scenario max, right? Like
Hmm.
me personally, like if I'm like snorting ammonia caps and there's like metal turned all the way up and I got like my training partner like smack me in the face, like I could probably bench 315 for
Uh-huh.
one.
Right.
I couldn't do that every day. Like if I like got off of work and I felt like shit, sorry,
No,
you
no,
don't like
right.
nothing, I forgot. My
Of
bad.
course.
But yeah, if I got off work one day and I felt like crap, and I I just worked for 12 hours and I lay down on the bench, I'm probably not going to bench 315 every single day,
Right.
um, under any circumstances. But if I take 10% off of that, I could probably bench 285 any day of the week,
Hmm.
without too much of a problem, even if I didn't feel great.
Right.
So I've noticed, like for longevity's sake, and to help you make sure that you're never really missing a rep, is when you're programming off of percentage based training, um, take 90% of your max and then program off of that instead.
Hmm.
So, like if my programming calls for 3 sets of 5 at 80%, and my best case scenario max is 315, I'm going to subtract 10% from 315, and that'll be the number that I base my percentages off of instead.
Right. I mean, because best case scenario, I mean, how many times do you have that? Like, you know, they're rare. That's why they're called best case scenarios. So it's like that doesn't happen all the time. So to make a system for yourself strictly off of that, like one in a, you know, once a blue moon type of situation, it seems silly, right? So I mean that makes way more sense. Let me ask you this. What do you, I've been trying to do a little bit more performance working out instead of like what I the whole bodybuilding scene, like we talked about before. What do you think is the best way to train? Do you think it's best to train for performance, or do you think it's best to train for like aesthetics? And you know, how would you classify that?
That's a good question. And I think, in my opinion, I think if you prioritize training for performance, and when we say performance, I just mean in general, being a healthy, functional human being, being able
Right.
to move well, being, generally athletic, being able to run around with your kids or your friends or whatever, just training to be like a fully functional, mobile, um, strong human, that transfers over to some really nice aesthetics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like by proxy, training for performance, you're going to get nice aesthetics in general. So I
Right.
think for most people, that's the way to go. Not to say that you can't do some direct arm work or some lateral raises to get like some nice rounded mid delts. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I'm just saying, like, basing the foundation of your training around feeling better, moving better, just being strong in general, that will transfer to some very nice, appealing aesthetics.
Right. It's interesting you mentioned that because I was just listening to a guy, and that's what made me ask that question. He's in China. He has a really big YouTube following, Ramsey Dewey, and he's a MMA trainer there. And that's one of the things that he said. He's like, always train for performance, and the aesthetics will just happen, you know.
Yeah.
And then because a lot of times when you train for aesthetics, you miss the exercises that make you, you know, like you said, a strong overall strength, like, you know, being able to control your body the way you should be able to, you know. um, those things get missed, and that's where I've seen like the biggest issue with myself, because I have been training the bodybuilding style for so long, is that yes, I'm strong in certain lifts or just in general working out, but what about like the control of my body? You know, it's like overall strength, you know, that those things are huge, you know, as a
Yeah.
human being.
Well, yeah. And, typically when you're doing your typical bodybuilding split, it'll be like, Monday chest and buys, Tuesday back and tries, Wednesday legs, maybe if you feel like it, Thursday shoulders, Friday arms again,
Right.
or whatever, just typically speaking, kind of like a bro split type
Right.
thing. And that in general, it can be effective, but when you start deliberately training for performance, um, what are the areas where most people are lacking? We have weak, inactive upper backs because we're always sitting in a chair, hunched over. We have weak glutes because we're usually, again, sitting in a chair, not activating them much, driving, typing in a computer, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start realizing, like, hey, these areas are really being neglected, and I need to start putting more of an emphasis on them. You start doing maybe 100 band pull aparts a day to strengthen the upper back musculature, the postural muscles. You start doing, 100 hip thrusts or 100 glute bridges before every workout to turn on the glutes. Over time, you're going to notice in your t-shirt, like, you're going to feel little muscles sticking out in the back. Your t-shirt's going to fit a little bit differently. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have these little small muscles are going to start to hypertrophy. Your glutes are going to start to look better. They're going to come up. They're going to hypertrophy because you're hitting them more frequently. You're activating them. They're not so weak and dormant now.
Mm-hmm.
So by proxy, because you're training for performance, you're training to move better, feel better, you're going to look better because these muscle groups that you were previously neglecting, they're getting a lot more attention. The priority principle.
Are you a high volume guy, or are you a like heavyweight, low volume?
You know, I just did. Typically, I'm not like crazy high volume. Like, well, in my training, most of the time I'll work up to 1 to 2 work sets done to technical failure, as in I couldn't do another rep with good technique.
Mm.
Typically, live in like the somewhere between the 5 to 10 rep range for that, just depending on the exercise. I just came off of a program where we did like 5 accessory movements in every workout, and all of them we were doing rest pause sets of 100 reps. So we would just take a weight we could handle for 20 to 30 reps at a time, do as many as we could, rest for a minute, bang out 20 more, whatever, and we would keep going all the way until we got to 100 reps. And every workout was like a total of like 600 or 700 reps, and it was just crazy. And the theory goes lightweight with higher reps is better for your joints. Not necessarily all the time, because I can tell you, like, I felt like a 50-year-old man after 3 months of doing that. It was an experiment, and it kind of proved the theory in my mind that a moderate volume, a frequency of probably 2 times a week seems to work best for most people.
2 times a week, meaning what? 2 times a body part a week, or what are you referring to there?
So, for instance, like what I'm doing right now in my training is I'll train upper body twice a week. And on day one, it'll be heavy barbell bench pressing and heavy-ish dumbbell bench pressing. And then later on in the week, I'll come back for another upper body session, and I'll hit the push pattern again, but it's not going to be heavy barbell benching and heavy dumbbell benching. It's going to be a push-up variation.
I see. Okay.
So I'm stimulating the muscle multiple times a week, but I'm not beating myself up with like, the more the more demanding exercises on your joints, like barbell and dumbbell exercises.
I got
I'm
it.
giving the joints a break, but I'm hitting the muscle frequently.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So you're doing like one day you're doing heavy, and then another day you're focusing on the volume.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
time under tension, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's the best way to do it. But you're not, when you're saying you're doing upper body, you're hitting like everything regarding upper body. You're not just doing like just chest, like, because I'm thinking of like time wise, like a lot of people wouldn't have the time just to separate everything. So when you hit upper body, you're hitting multiple body parts, correct? Like the entire
Yeah.
upper body.
Right. So right now, the current split that I'm on, that is what I'm doing. It'll be, the main movement will be some type of pressing variation. Right now, it's just a flat barbell bench press. The main accessory movement will be a dumbbell bench press, and from that point, after that, supplemental exercises will consist of like cable rows, band pull aparts, YWT holds, things like that. And then to finish it off, we'll hit a little bit of isolation work, like some side delts or some curls or a push down variation.
Very cool. Very cool. So with your book, is this something, with regard to the pandemic, in our area, all our gyms are fairly, open. A lot of places they're, mostly open, but if somebody wanted to use it in their home, is that something that can be done?
The first phase, 100% for sure. You can do it with just your body weight in a band. The second phase, you'll need a little bit more, but not much. You could do the second phase with just a bench and 1 to 2 sets of dumbbells and like a yoga mat to lay down on. It's not until you get to the final phase where you would need a little bit more equipment, like some type of rack just to do barbell bench pressing in. But again, programs should be written in pencil, not in pen. So you can modify these movements to make them more friendly to like a home environment if you're limited, if you don't have a bunch of equipment or whatever.
Right.
There are different ways to progress it. But traditionally, if you were to do the program in the book exactly as it's written, towards the end of the phase, towards the last phase, you would need, a barbell setup, which not
Right.
everybody has in their home.
Yeah, that's true. However, I will say it's not like you need any kind of extreme machinery like the hammer strength machines or anything like that. Just the basic prison style stuff, like just the bars and a couple of dumbbells and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you have access to a pull-up bar, a few pairs of dumbbells, and some type of like a small power rack, then you've got everything you need to do the
Yeah.
program. You could run it a million times
Yeah.
and just keep on increasing the intensity and the volume as you go for years, and you would continue to make progress.
Yeah, and that's I like that you mentioned that as well. It's not something that you do one time and you're done and you basically just throw away the book or delete it in this case. It's something that you can keep and just keep doing it over and over and get more and more benefit from it. So it's almost like one of those where you really just kind of want to have in your library.
Yeah, it's repeatable, and there's an FAQ session or an FAQ section in the book, and one of the questions is, I'm done with the program. What do I do next? And I kind of outline some ideas for you.
Mm-hmm.
What you want to do next all depends on what you want to do with yourself, what you want to pursue. If you're trying to be a power lifter, then there are a lot of great coaches with a lot of great powerlifting based programs. If you're just trying to feel healthy, look good, there's nothing wrong with running that program again. If you want to explore more of a power building style, there are plenty of power building programs available, or you can just get coaching from me at harrisfitsystems.com.
All right, shameless plug.
Yeah.
Nice. So, hey, I guess since we're kind of at a point where we should probably round and kind of close things up with the episode, and you did just plug your coaching. Can you tell us where to find the book itself?
Yeah. So harrisfitsystems.com, top left hand corner, click ebooks. It's the only thing that's available in the store right now, so it's pretty easy to find. I believe it's like $37 at the moment.
Got it.
It's on sale for the next couple of weeks here, and then the price goes back up to its regular 47.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I truly believe that it's very small nominal investment to make in your future for you to learn how to do things from the beginning and not make the same mistakes that so many of us have made when they're just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, think about how much does a gym membership cost? I mean, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, you pay that every month. This is a one-time purchase that's gonna be way more beneficial. So it's knowledge is way more powerful than people give it credit for. People that have it are able to overcome and surpass others.
Absolutely. For the cost of less than one personal training session from whoever at your local Globo gym, you're going to be armed with the knowledge that you need to go from the very basics all the way up to the more technically demanding but also rewarding barbell work. So
Right.
absolutely, I can honestly tell you, knowing what I know is in that book, that I would recommend it to anybody that is either just getting started in the gym or has been in the gym for a while now and feels like they kind of could use a refresher, or like they want to go back and kind of try to rebuild that foundation that maybe they didn't start off with so great. You know what I mean?
Right. And then also, hey guys, if maybe you want to coach somebody, and how are you going to coach them if you don't know the basics? You don't want to get anybody hurt. It's a liability thing too. So learn the proper way to do something, and then yourself, and then you can pass that on to others, So that also.
And that statement that you just made is the exact reason why I did not want to write that book 10 years ago. because I didn't know 10 years ago what I know now. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have learned what I've learned over the last decade if I hadn't have been in the trenches and made the mistakes and gotten the education and figured out the through trial and error, through true experience, the right way to do things from the beginning. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's what you want. That's what you want when you hear that a book is written by somebody. You don't want somebody that's that's never been in there, that's just doing science knowledge. I mean, science is important. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's critical, but you also want somebody that applied that science to real life. And as we know, sometimes practice is different than just conceptually thinking of something. So you want somebody that knows the scientific knowledge but also was able to apply it to real life scenarios.
Absolutely. And if anybody, if there's anybody that might be on the fence about, checking the book out, or you've got more questions for me, if there's anything specifically that you would like to find out about the book, shoot me a message, Instagram, Zack Harris 01. Very easy. Get in touch with me. Any questions, just ask.
Yeah, yeah.
Always free to talk.
Yeah, and I will say that Zach is always loves talking about. He loves talking fitness, loves training, loves everything. So loves coaching others. So yeah, definitely reach out to him. Well, Zach, I appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy man, so I'm glad we were able to get together, and I look forward to maybe even going through your program myself.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank
Uh-huh.
you very much.
All right, no problem. Take care.